Hey guys, it's Naisha here with Unheard Voices. I want to just say hello to all our friends and family of Unheard Voices. We are doing an interview with Mr. Brewer, who is a candidate for District 33. And so what we're going to be doing is interviewing him tonight. And if you have any questions, just feel free to go ahead and start chiming in. I'm going to ask a few questions, and then we're going to go ahead and go from there. I'm going to just go ahead and add him in now, and then we're going to go in from there, and you can put your questions at the bottom, and we'll answer as we go. Mr. Brewer, can you see me?
I can. How are you? Can you hear me?
I think I can see you. It's a little bit delayed. Can you see me?
I can, yes.
Good, and you?
I'm doing good.
Okay, what I want to do...
No supper.
Yes, I can hear you. So what I want to do is I want to ask you a couple of questions. We've kind of come forth about the Alabama judicial system. So our first question is, what are your general outlooks on crime and punishment in Alabama?
Good question. Well, I think we have some areas where we can improve a lot. Certainly in the our marijuana laws are far behind the curve for the rest of the nation. I think the nation is probably moving towards maybe a federal.
Okay, you're kind of breaking up on us.
I'm sorry. I'm hoping that we'll have some federal passage of the end prohibition on marijuana. That'll help things. Drug laws are certainly behind. I know that we've been practicing a lot of arrests that's led to the maturation problem, and we've got sentencing problems that we need to address. We've got problems in the judiciary we need to address, and the legislative process can help a lot of that, I believe.
Okay, thank you. So what are your views concerning the court system and the prison system and sentencing and parole system?
Well, sentencing right now is harsh. I mean, we've got reforms that we need to enact from one end to the other, from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other. We're lacking on rehabilitation. It's almost non-existent, as I understand it, at least from the research that I've been doing and from what I've been learning from people like yourself and contacts that are in the know. Now, I don't come from a corrections background. I come from a music background, so and I'm not an attorney. So my knowledge about the law is what I research on my own and try to stay up on. I studied criminal justice in college before I joined the Navy. So I've had an interest in law, and which has led me to a lot of my activity and trying to keep up with politics and deciding to go into politics today. As far as parole, I think I've been enlightened somewhat to the Senate Bill 67, which was Cam Warden's bill. And it has a lot of problems. You know, the language is very important. And the language in that bill is atrocious, really. Our parole boards are not reviewing doing personal interviews. There's just so many. There's so many reforms in that area that need to happen to produce and be successful in life. I think we've missed the mark on that. Certainly.
Okay. Our next question, what are your thoughts on prison reform efforts or lack thereof going on in the state level?
I think it was it was quite a I don't know how to say this. You know, it was like Houdini. they loved this bill as a reform bill. It has no reforms in it. The only thing it reformed was making sentences harsher and making sure that we stack prisoners on top of more prisoners. There was nothing reform about it. Prisoners and possible parole candidates. It's hard to reform at all. We got a delay.
Okay, I think we're kind of messing up here. It's like cutting in and out. Can you still hear me?
I do. Yes.
Let's see, it's freezing up on me.
Yeah, you were freezing up on me a little bit too.
Are you able to hear me? Good.
I am. Yes, I got you. I do.
Okay, maybe that's better. Okay. Okay, yeah, we were kind of getting disconnected there. It kept clicking in and out on me.
We've got some weather
Okay,
up
so
here. I don't know if that has to do it.
that may be the problem. There may be some issues. So we'll just go on to the next question and hopefully it won't cut out on us. Okay, what would be your priorities concerning bringing real change in Alabama's criminal justice system?
I think one of my first priorities would be making sure that we introduce rehabilitation that's going to work as far as providing trade skill sets and introducing those kind of training, you know, where you keep people busy. I know at the moment we seem to be stuck in a phase where we're relying on things like counseling, faith-based nonprofit programs coming in and trying to counsel young men to, you know, do the mind over matter thing. And I can tell you that you know, from my own experience with counseling, it does no good because the conditions of one's life is what really matters. You can have all the counseling and have all the positive mind over matter that you can ask for and talk about that, but until you improve the condition and set someone up for success to have their own conditions improved in life, then I don't believe counseling is doing us much good. As far as the judiciary, you know, there's a lot that I don't know, but there's a lot that I will intend on finding out and intend on getting involved in from the legislative process if I'm elected. Coming from a candidate standpoint, you know, we don't have the kind of power and authority or the ability to go and tour prisons or go and talk with judges or but I do know this. We're very far apart as far as the ideologies between the parties, as far as Republicans and Democrats. And when you have one party who is the perceived as and likes to perceive themselves as well as the law and order party, the get tough on crime party, then there's a lot of dehumanization that goes on there, and just recently they began to start talking about looking at reforms and understanding that there is a problem. But it also seems very politically expedient for them to do so at this point. We've gone now almost 3 days, and a lot of the solutions are out there. We're already talking about them as a nation. It's not a lot that I'm, personally bringing to the table that's not already here. So I would,
right.
I would take a great look into, a deep look into what is out there, what's being discussed now, the kind of solutions that we need to look at. I would do all that, but I certainly think from a point where a young man is sentenced, we know right now that the language says that parole is an act of grace, and boy, that's kind of a Godsmack term right there. You
Right.
want to start talking about putting that kind of power in a parole board. Plus, parole boards become very bureaucratic, and we lose a lot of the humanness in that, right? So when you begin to look at a parole candidate as a statistic, or his point system, or whether or not he's gathered up some certificates and stuff like that, which from my understanding from a contact is very easy for a convict to get a certificate, a counseling certificate, anger management certificate, whatever those programs are they're using in a classroom setting. And I just think that we'll do a lot better when we start looking at providing skills that can actually be applied outside of the prison, and begin to look at case by case parole candidates, who they are as a person, how far they've come, where they stand, what they've learned from their experience, and what sort of support system they have, and what sort of skill sets they've learned that we can provide them through the prison system. Where the purpose of corrections, in my mind, should be to make a better person.
Right.
Yeah, and try to provide someone with the tools that they would need to survive in society. And we have to lower the stigma that comes with, because every application has the question on it, so that's a disadvantage to them right there. As soon as they answer that question, they're probably likely not going to get that job. So job placement, getting some more business entities involved, developers or general contractors and stuff like that, getting them involved into the prison rehab program, where we're teaching young men who have a chance, who could really change, who don't have long sentences, lifetime sentences. And perhaps we could get them into a skill trade that, in turn, with general contractors or developers' help who are getting involved, taking them on for a job placement, and having a job placement program when they come out. But I think all those things add up. They got to have a support system. They got to have a skill. And I've always believed that busy hands make an idle mind. And when you can get busy putting your mind on things that you're doing as far as work and building, and all the parameters there in construction and stuff like that. I mean, we could teach that to any young man and probably change his life. And there are other areas too, as far as employment wise. I'm sure other skills that we could teach. Not everybody's going to be good with their hands, of course, but I think we've got to get beyond just the counseling stage and and just believing that we're going to improve someone just by talking to them and giving them a certificate, especially if these programs aren't working and they can get a certificate with a pack of cigarettes. That's obviously a huge flaw and a huge failure.
Right.
We call it.
So we need counseling and like you were saying, going hand in hand, not just counseling and giving a certificate and just that stamp of approval and out the door. There has to be something else connected with that.
Right. Something that's gonna help provide them with a little bit more stability on the outside.
Okay, let's see. You're freezing up. There we go.
Yes, something that's going to help them with stability on the outside. Success.
Okay, we have a question from one of the commenters. They asked, do you think... Right. I'm sorry, it was a delay. One of the questions that's with our commenters, do you think incentive, good time for all inmates would be a good thing for prison reform and rehabilitation?
Absolutely. And I like that language, incentive. I think we need to explore that as far as language goes in the legislative process. When we start using terms like incentive, I believe we're on the right path there. I believe we'll have a lot more success with selling these kind of reforms to the people.
That's not a hard question. A waste of taxpayers' money?
The way it's set up now, it is, absolutely.
It's kind of cutting in and out still.
Is it a waste of money? The way it's set up now, it is.
See, you froze up, so I'm thinking it's the storm.
It'll catch up.
There we go. Okay.
Now you're frozen up.
Do you think, here's another question that somebody's asking, do you think parole is a right or a privilege, and why?
I think, so that's a good question. I think there we have to be, again, careful with language, especially in the legislative process. Do I believe that prisoners have a right to expect parole? I'm not sure. I do believe they have a right to the incentive to pursue parole. So maybe we want to find the language that works best for that. I do believe any prisoner who is not serving a lifetime sentence for a heinous crime should be able to expect a path towards parole. This helps to keep our prisons from becoming overcrowded. It helps to change with the proper rehabilitation involved. Helps to change a life that may be leaning more towards a criminal behavior to a positive, I don't want to say model citizen behavior, but definitely, leaning towards becoming a model citizen. Privilege. I believe it could be a privilege. But in any case, I believe incentive. I believe privilege is like when I think of privilege, I think of a driver's license. So, we have standards and criteria set for privileges. Right seems to be seems to invite the terminology like entitlements and stuff like that. So when I'm thinking of it from a perspective of how the opposition might, retort offer retort to that, then you'll probably get some hostile retort when you start talking about trying to give rights to offenders. But I do believe that they have a right to the incentive to pursue parole.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Let's see. Yes, it does. Let's see. We have another question. Are you willing to petition government for rehabilitation?
Absolutely.
And it says, okay, no bodily harm. Let's see. It says, Glenda asks, let me repeat that. I'm sorry. Are you willing to petition government for rehabilitation incentives for no bodily harm criminals?
Yes. And we have to understand too, not every bodily harm or violent offender is a very violent person. The way that we've got the judicial system set up now, the way that we've got domestic violence set up now, where someone has to go to jail, we don't always know that these prisoners have committed a heinous degree of bodily harm. So, let's not be too quick to stigmatize violent offenders or bodily harm with heinous crimes like murder or egregious, assault and battery and stuff like that, because there could be some domestic violence involved there sometimes. That it takes two to tango. Sometimes, and I'm not promoting, us letting any spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend off the hook who's, committed some kind of bodily harm upon a spouse or a girlfriend or a girlfriend to a boyfriend. It happens both ways, female to male or male to female. But I do think there are degrees. And I think each case has its own degree of heinousness or criminality. Does a girlfriend who was mad at her boyfriend for cheating on him and she hits him with a stick, does that mean that she's going to be a criminal down the road? But she's gone to jail, and maybe because she's struck somebody, she finds herself into a cycle of finds her in prison before long. And this happens too in the probationary stage of, like, even traffic court and stuff like that, where we've had private probationary ended up hooking poor people who can't afford to pay tickets and stuff like that, and end up in what they were basically holding was debtors' courts. Don't always know, the degree of the bodily harm. So I want to be careful not to stigmatize anyone, any offense. But I do think we should look at that. Absolutely.
Okay. See, we have a question from Sonia. How does one give a sentence of 2 life sentences when you only have 1 life? This adds to overcrowding, do you think?
No. I think if they're getting a life sentence, then they've done something very heinous, and they're probably not. I don't see what a second life sentence is causing any crowding. I don't believe that's a symptom of the problem. I'd be interested to hear how it might be, though, if someone thinks it is, and maybe they know something I don't. But we caught up.
Okay. Our next question. What do you think about the 13th Amendment exception clause?
I think the 13th Amendment exceptions was. Can you hear me? Are we caught up? Okay, I'm going to continue. The 13th Amendment.
It's cutting in and out.
Okay. Are my answers coming through? Yes.
Let's see, you it froze up on me. You hear me?
I do.
Okay, there we go. You're back now.
All right, the 13th. All right, 13th Amendment exception clause. It's curious that they did that, isn't it?
Yes,
You know,
it is.
it's almost as if they knew what they were doing. I think it was absurd that they even put that language in there. When we were abolishing slavery, basically all they did was make sure that they provided some language in there to continue something that carried on through the Jim Crow era, all the way up until we had to have the fight for civil rights, and it's still going today. So the exception clause, I think the 13th Amendment should be amended to remove that language from the 13th. Absolutely, it's ridiculous that it's even in there. Now, do I think that that it's outrageous that we would use, or especially back in that time, do I think it's outrageous that we would use prisoners for labor back in that time or today? No, I don't think it's ridiculous that we would use prisoners for labor. But should it be slave labor? No, absolutely not. As I said, I believe we should keep idle hands busy, and if we can establish some trade skill training and use prisoners, even maybe build crews and stuff out of them where they maintain the facilities, remodel the facilities, and then graduated convicts maybe start going out on work release to work on construction jobs instead of doing these contracts with towns where basically they're becoming garbage men and janitorial services and cutting grass and stuff like that, all these menial jobs. We can probably change some lives that way too, especially if we do something like getting general contractors involved into the rehab program.
Okay.
But compensate so that they have something. Compensate so that they have something to help them be more successful and strive to be that model citizen that they can be once paroled. Because when we let them out with a bus ticket, how is anybody supposed to get started? And especially someone who has no family support system behind them to receive them when they come out. So we have to be careful about that. Remove the exception clause.
Okay. There we go. Okay, you cut out on the end there.
I was saying,
okay, Dana asks, what about doing away with mandatory minimum sentencing? Oh, I'm sorry, it was a delayed. Okay, here we go. Let me start again. What about doing away with mandatory minimum sentencing for non-violent offenders? Some of the sentences are draconian to say the least. What is your perspective on that?
I agree with that. I believe we have a lot of draconian sentencing there. I believe we can restructure sentencing altogether. Minimum.
Okay, let's see. You'll have to start again because it's cutting the storm.
Okay. I believe that's correct. There are some draconian elements involved in our sentencing. As I said before, I believe sentencing is harsh, especially for the more. I don't know that minimum sentencing I believe if we just have a restructuring and we have some reforms in sentencing, then we might reach a better practice. But the way the status quo is now, absolutely, they're draconian and they're harsh and they're not in keeping with what I feel like corrections should be purposed for. Not only that, but for the more petty offenses, I don't believe we should be putting them in prison. I believe there are a lot of cases, especially drug cases, where we can redirect a young man or a young person.
Okay, let's see.
Even a young lady.
You're freezing up on us again.
Okay.
Can you repeat the last question?
I believe we
last
can.
Statement?
Right. Well, I believe in drug cases and less petty cases, more petty cases, that we could redirect them into some sort of program where we're putting them into some education or getting them into some trade skill training or offering them some service to enlist or something like that instead of putting them in prison. And by the way, I've heard some good ideas from some governors at the top of the ticket who are running for governor. I've heard some good ideas on that plane also that I like, that I would support.
Okay. Okay, there we go. It froze one more time. Okay, Glenda asks, how can politicians assist citizens in removing red flags from their name?
You'll have to clue me in on red flags.
Let's see.
Clue me
Okay,
in
let's
on
see.
what
You
red
froze up
flag.
again. Would you like for me to repeat that? I'm sorry.
No, just
Yes,
you
it
can clue
says,
me in
how
on
can
what
how
red
can
flags are.
politicians assist citizens in removing red flags from their names? Meaning the red flags of the politicians.
I don't believe I understand the question. I'll need to know what red flags are. I'm not from a correction standpoint or a politician.
Okay.
Not yet, anyway. Well, I'm trying to be one, but
Okay.
I guess, but I never have been before. Well, you're freezing up on me.
Okay.
Do you know what she means by red flag?
Let's see. Let me ask 2 more questions and then we can wrap it up, because I know that storm is coming through and it's like cutting it on you. Maybe we can follow up later. What is your take on private prisons in Alabama?
I stand firmly against them.
I'm sorry, repeat that again. It cut out again.
I stand firmly against the privatization of prisons. Against.
You're firmly against them. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I believe once we introduce the profit motive, it
Good. Yes.
it taints the whole system. It destroys the purpose of corrections, and it takes it into another arena, doesn't it? I mean, we're talking about introducing a profit motive into a system where we're supposed to be, correcting behaviors and there's supposed to be some punishment there also. I understand that, but no, privatization of prisons is a dangerous thing, and it's gotten us where we are today. It should be left up to the state.
Right.
Be left up to the state and the people.
Mm-hmm.
Start introducing the corporate model, and the corporate model is going to start introducing profit motive, and that's where we get in trouble.
Okay. Let's see. Our last question. What is your position on the Habitual Offender Act?
446. Well, from what I understand, it's not including the same criminal act. In other words, a person could be convicted of one crime, then say do their time for it, or get out on parole, and then they might get caught for, some other smaller crime or maybe a larger crime or whatever, and then their sentencing or their destiny is decided by something else that they did before in life. I believe due process should always take precedence for every crime. Now, if you're talking about someone who is committing the same crime over and over, like someone who's committing rape over and over, or pedophilia, or assault and battery, then that's a problem. And that's a problem that someone has personally. So in that case, I don't know that 446 is the right code to use on there, but I do believe habitual offenders should mean that they have a problem committing the same crime. And we have to deal with that. If someone's being, if someone can't break their cycle, if someone can't break their serial behavior, then we have to deal with that. Absolutely. But under code 446.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we want to wrap up this evening in our interview. Hopefully we can follow up with you and see how things are going later on in the campaign and like that. And hopefully we can interview you again, and maybe not during the time that there's a storm coming through, but we thank you so much for tuning in with us and answering a lot of our questions and things like that. And, I'm pretty sure there'll be some people that'll probably hit up your Facebook page and are still asking questions, and we'll just transfer them over as we get them. And you can kind of answer them from there.
Okay.
But thank you so much. And we want to thank our Unheard Voices people that have been tuning in and talking with us. And so don't forget our let's see. Yeah, you're still, I think that storm is still coming through. You're still kind of coming through delayed.
Yeah, it is. It's heavy right now. Thank you for having me, and I'll be happy to do it again anytime.
There we go. So, thank you. Thank you. So we'll sign off on you for now, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, and guys, I just wanted to kind of throw in there before we sign off from Unheard Voices, just kind of reminding you of our school supply drive. We're about $400 from reaching our goal. Thank you guys, those of you that have donated. It has helped out so much. We have one of our wonderful ladies that's a part of Unheard Voices, Sarah, who's going to be helping. Hopefully I can touch base with her in June, and we're going to go live on that, grabbing school supplies for the kids. I am so excited. We'll go live and let you watch us put those school supplies and stuff together. Just keep those donations coming because it's going to help out so much. I was even talking with some of the kids from my school like I said, that have parents that are incarcerated, and a couple of my students I have target. Well, they're no longer my students, but they are. They used to be my students, and I told one of them that we were going to be in contact with her parents, and we're just really excited to provide them with those school supplies. But those of you that have tuned in, thank you so much for tuning in. Please do not stop the questions. We do want you to continue to ask questions. Hopefully we can get some more candidates involved and do question and answers. This is just a platform for you guys also to ask those questions, because I think it's very crucial for you guys and for us too to ask these questions of our politicians. We see the way the world is going today, and we have to be that change. We have to be that change. That's the only way we can get things done, things change, is if we step in and we start asking those questions of our politicians and holding them accountable for the things that they do. I saw some great questions on here. I saw some people who were asking some great questions, you know, talking about the ego of the politicians and different things like that. I think we do need to call them out on these things. So guys, thank you so much. Like I said, keep those questions coming. We will continue to kind of watch Scott Brewer and make sure, you know, to follow his campaign and see what's happening with him. Some of the other ones, Maddox and other ones that we have touched base with. I can't think of all the names right off the base right now, but we are going to keep up with these politicians and keep asking them questions. So I hope you guys have a great evening, and hopefully you enjoyed. Talk to you soon.